Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar about the Japanese markets. So we are really happy to welcome you for this session organized in collaboration with the EU Japan Center and the Pima Plus European project. So welcome to this session. For your information, this webinar is recorded. So after the webinar, tomorrow we will share it with all the participants. So if at one point you need to leave, you will be able to access to the rest of the presentation. So my name is Aditya Lafay. I'm working at Alpha Heritage Cluster, and I'm the coordinator of the European cluster, European project Pima Plus, sorry. So just to remind you the program of this webinar, first I will introduce the Pima Plus project, what we are doing and our activities, how as companies you can benefit from our activities. Then I will let the floor to the other speakers. So first Eva from the EU Japan Center that will explain you what kind of services they offer to help you entering the Japanese market. And then I will let the floor to the Professor Nakabayashi that will also explain you how to enter the Japanese market. She will present you some advanced technology sectors and also give you some insight about the Japanese cultures. Then we will have a question and answer session. So during the webinar, you can already put some question in the chat, and then we will answer them at the end. So let's start with my introduction about the Pima Plus European project. So it's a European project funded by the European Commission, of course. And who are we in this project? We are 6 European cluster. So Alpha Heritage cluster located in Bordeaux in France is the coordinator, and this is my role here. And I have 5 other colleagues from clusters all over Europe, from Sweden, from Finland, from Portugal, Italy, and Czech Republic. So who we are exactly in terms of technologies. So as you have seen in the previous slide, we are a cluster looking at different technologies, but we have one thing in common, is that we are looking to the photonics value chain. We are representing the entire value chain from technology providers to integrators and to users. And we are looking specifically to 3 main markets: the advanced manufacturing, the metalworking, and the aerospace industry. And what we are doing is lately, our objective in this European project is to support the SMEs, European SMEs, to export in 4 main markets. So as you can see, there is the North American market through US and Canada, and there is the Asian markets through Japan and China. So in terms of services, what we do is that we organize business mission for SMEs. We also provide free market analysis that you can access on our website. We also offer a digital communication tool. This is the company booklet where you can have one page representing your products and what kind of technologies you offer in your company. And we also organize digital events as this webinar. For example, one of our major digital events was the Senior European Forum that we organized last year, June. It was composed of 2 half days of companies and academic presentation from China and from Europe. The objective was really to boost the collaboration between our 2 areas. And we had, so at the same time, a digital event, but also a face-to-face event in Beijing that was hosted by our partner there, Scientific Park, and where our representative our Alpha RLH representative in China was participating too, Balthazar Boyer. And at this occasion, we were able to sign an agreement of cooperation between a Pima Plus consortium and this scientific park in China. And now we are really focusing on organizing business mission, but face-to-face business mission now that COVID-19 is a little bit less strong and the borders are reopening. So during those business mission, we are organizing the visit to fairs, to international exhibition, but also to research and development centers. We organize B2B meetings. We organize networking. We also held some international presentation. So you can see on the slide that we have participated last year to EMO Milano in October, but also to EMAF exhibition in Porto. And this year in January, we were at Photonics West exhibition in San Francisco, which is the major photonics exhibition in the world. So to know more about our project, you can follow us on the social media. We have a website, but we are also present on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and we have a webpage on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform where we are publishing all our news. But also we would like to say to you to join us, to really, we are looking to support the companies. So in terms of business mission, next week we will have a business mission in Canada that will take place during 3 days. There we will have a networking. We will have also a visit of centers, research centers. We also organize B2B meetings, and we are supported by a local cluster, Optonic, and also a consultancy company, Réseaué. So it will be a very interesting program for the companies. And in terms of next mission that you can join, we are looking at ACE-Tech exhibition in the US. It will take place in 2 months from 16 to 18 May. Is the still a premier technology event, so you can meet there all the major suppliers and manufacturers of the steel industry. So if you are interested by this exhibition, please contact us. We can help you to organize your trip there. And now I will go to the Japan topic. So I would like to share with you that now our Alpha RLH representative is now in Japan since 1 week, thanks to the reopening of the borders. So his role will be to support our members, Alpha RLH members, but also Pima Plus members that are interested to develop their business in Japan. He will help you to create your network there. He will facilitate your entry by connecting you with key stakeholders. And he can also represent your companies during fairs and exhibitions. So don't hesitate to contact him or us directly if you are interested by such a support. And also, I would like to communicate about the Manufacturing World Japan exhibition that we are looking at today with the reopening of the borders of Japan. It is possible to go to Japan if you have the triple vaccination with recognized vaccines. And this is the case for most of the EU countries. What you need is a business visa. So for this one, you need to have a sponsoring or letter of invitation and also to get the visa from the embassy. But if you go through all that things, then you can go and attend the Manufacturing World Japan. So we are planning to go there. We are still to see how it is feasible or not, how many companies are interested. So that's really the objective. Now, I will ask my colleague David to launch the poll. The idea here is for all the companies, if you can say to us if you are interested by this mission. It would be between the 20 and 24 of June, probably, because the time of traveling is quite long. So the Manufacturing World Japan will last 3 days, is really looking at all the main technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, but also sensors and health devices. You can also have a look to the website. Is really well explaining the exhibition. And we will not share the results. It's just for us to know whether there is a company interested to go with us or not. And it will then help us to contact each of you who are interested and see how we can um, organize that kind of mission in June. So please feel free to say to show your interest, and then we will contact you if you say yes. I think that the process to go to Japan is now a little bit easier, so it's quite a good opportunity. And also, I'd like to add that we can support your travel expenses thanks to the project envelope, and also we will organize B2B meetings, networking, as I said for the other business mission. So thank you everyone for your inputs. And now I will let the floor to my colleague Eva to introduce the EU Japan Center and to present to all of you what they are doing and how they can help you to enter the Japanese market.
Thank you very much, Alethea and David, for this kind introduction and organization of the session. And it's a pleasure to participate in today's webinar with Alpha Cluster, and I hope you can hear me well. To all participants as well, thank you very much for joining, and I hope the session will be of interest for you. My name is Eva, and I'm a business support coordinator at the EU Japan Center, as Alethea already mentioned. And before the start of Ms. Nakabayashi's presentation, I would like to take just a couple of minutes and very briefly present to you the support activities of the center and how you can hopefully benefit from it. So to those who have never heard about the U-Japan Center, we're kind of a unique venture in the sense that we're partially funded by the European Commission and partially funded by METI, Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. That is to say that we're a non-profit governmental organization, and all of our activities are free of charge, and you shouldn't be afraid to use them. We have two offices, headquartered in Tokyo and in Brussels, and together we try to promote all forms of industrial, trade, and investment cooperation between European and Japanese entities. There are a few things to keep in mind for an SME when targeting the Japanese markets. First, you would need to gather the information and analyze in depth the Japanese market and the sector of your interest. Additionally, understand the specificities of Japan, of course, including the Japanese etiquette and business culture. Find key contacts that you could start communication with, and eventually, of course, evaluate and identify potential opportunities on the market for you. For further information on our services, I would like to mention today the two key websites that we have in place. On eujapan.eu website, you can find all the information about our activities and events that we're organizing, including various seminars, virtual matchmaking missions, webinars, trainings, and any other similar information. On EU Business in Japan.eu website, on the second one on the slide, you can find a bit more practical information on different sectors of your interest in Japan. We also have a vast library of market reports, e-learning videos, and we organize several webinars on a weekly basis. To date, we have over 100 reports written by external and internal experts covering all sectors in Japan, ranging from IoT, ICT, photonics, nanotech, textile, food, and many other. As you can see here, a few of them listed. And additionally, we organize a few webinars on a weekly basis, and we also cover we also have over 100 recorded sessions covering a range of sectors, including Japanese business protocol and other cultural insights. As you probably know as well, in 2019, the EU and Japan signed Economic Partnership Agreement, so-called EPA, allowing for lower tariffs for exports and imports of different products and services between Japan and the EU. As a result, we have created the EPA Help Desk that addresses the latest developments and helps you to take the advantage of this agreement. For further information, publications, and webinars that we have already published, do not hesitate to have a look at our help desk on the link indicated, or also just contact me directly, actually, for any information after today's session or during. The U-Japan Center is also here. Also, I have a list of how it looks like, the EPA Help Desk. You can see the link, and we have also published all the publications and webinars directly on this link on the U-Japan EPA Help Desk. And my next slide would be mentioning that the U-Japan Center is also a member of Enterprise Europe Network, so-called European Commission funded network, which supports USME's internationalization. The center helps with the promotion of EU companies' profiles, tailored B2B meetings and networking events in Japan. And we also organize market access workshops with local EN partners across the network. If you would like to know more about possible matching opportunities with Japanese counterparts and have your company's profile translated and promoted in Japan by us, please get in touch with me directly for more information. If of further interest, I would also like to mention a couple of training missions that we have in place, such as Get Ready for Japan, which focuses on how to do business in Japan and includes lectures, seminars, company visits, and also tailored B2B meetings. Due to the pandemic, for the last couple of years, this 2-week free of charge training is being held online, yet still takes place every May. And deadline for this year, as you can see, has already passed. But if of further interest, keep in mind that the next mission will take place already on site in Japan in 2023, if all goes as foreseen, of course. And another quick mention would be for world-class manufacturing missions, so-called WCM. And also here I have on the second slide the lean visits, which are tailored for EU representatives with a background or interest in engineering. And these trainings, Lean and WCM, give an in-depth understanding of Japanese manufacturing methodology, those Lean and Kaizen techniques, and they also take place twice a year. The next Lean visit will be scheduled in June in Renault plant in Portugal. And again, for further information, I'm not going to bother you with details, but do not hesitate to contact me directly or just check the link on the slide. Lastly, wanted to mention the Volcanus in Europe program, which allows for you companies to host a highly skilled Japanese student for 8 months. So if you would like to have an in-house Japanese person to do the research, translations, and help you out with your general quest to make it and access Japan, I would really highly recommend to also look it up on our websites or just get in touch with me for further information. And as previously mentioned, we also have a few webinars taking place on a monthly basis. And here I have a list of a few upcoming sessions. As you can see, it ranges from EPA-related information to business culture to different aspects about the Japanese market. So to register and participate or to listen to the recordings of previous sessions, do not hesitate to check our eubusinessinjapan.eu website. And here I have a final site with a list of all the websites that you could potentially find interesting and useful. And if, as mentioned already several times, if you have any further questions about the information just mentioned, do not hesitate to shoot me an email to eva@eujapan.eu. Thank you very much for your time and patience. I hope this information was useful for you. And now, without further ado, I would like to probably pass the floor to Ms. Nakabayashi. Thank you.
Just Eva, we had a first question in the chat. Do you know if the collaboration between EU and Japan includes Switzerland? I think We are talking about the Free Trade Agreement, EPA, maybe you were talking about?
Indeed, if it concerns EPA, well, then it's technically only with EU states, because it's EU-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement. So if I'm not mistaken, perhaps Ms. Nakabayashi can also vouch for that. I don't think that Switzerland is included, or at least we have not dealt with Swiss companies to date. Hopefully it will change in the future.
Yes, it's always a little bit tricky to know whether Switzerland is included or not. So maybe
Exactly.
we could have a check also to give more insights. Thank you, Eva. And I let the floor to Mrs. Nakabayashi to present us how to enter the Japan market. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe before starting, I should say good morning and then thank you for having me. For the first questions, as you mentioned, that EU has a 27 member states, so Switzerland is not a part of it. So I'd like to start my presentation today. I'll be speaking to you about the Japanese market and the business opportunity in Japan for EU businesses, particularly in the advanced manufacturing technological sector. My presentation today focuses on the small and the medium enterprises, which are looking for a successful and cost-effective market entry into Japan in general, and also those enterprises which are wishing to know of the practical tips on how to market advanced technological solutions to Japan in particular. So let's go to agenda. In trading with Japan, there are concerns among foreign companies that it's very difficult to enter Japanese market. Perhaps it's a perception, but as it is because the consumer behaviors is different. Distribution and the sales networks are exclusive to Japanese companies, and then the foreign companies are excluded. Japanese government overregulates market and regulatory process, and the procedures are so complicated. And also local traditional business culture and practice are so unique to Japan, and it's so hard for Europeans to understand. These are the perceptions, or concerns among many European companies. So to clarify these concerns, I'll be speaking today according to the agenda I mentioned on the screen. First, market research. This is the key for successful market entry into Japan. 2, effective entry options according to your need. 3, Japan's industrial standards and the protections for your intellectual properties. 4, Japan's unique business culture and practices. And I will conclude the webinar with a question and answer session. So let's begin with the first topic, market research. Initial market research is a key for success to enter Japanese market, particularly to the Japanese market. The result of the research will be the determinants to decide your target groups in Japan, your market entry options to Japan, your marketing strategies, and future directions of your businesses with Japan. I'll be speaking about the basic point as follows. 1, basic market characteristics. 2, scope of sectors. 3, needs and preferences. 4, demand. 5, product adaptation. The last one is the market geography. So market, sorry, I have to go back to this one, the list. The basic market characteristics. Generally speaking, it's imperative to make extensive market research in Japan at the earlier stage, but before deciding whether you enter Japanese market. This is very important. Japanese market is typically very fast to adapt new trend, new global trend or regional trend. But the Japanese market maintains very strong loyalties to the domestic product and services for reasons like Japanese products are in higher qualities and higher standards, which comes with a more reliable alternative, attentive, speedy after services. Japanese consumers generally demand more product information than less, demand accountabilities and the transparency from manufacturers and suppliers. As for B2B in particular, Japanese companies value long-term established business relationship throughout their supply chains. As regards the scope of the sector and demand, to sell advanced technological solutions to Japan, it's recommended to expand the research to various sectors beyond so-called conventional sector that you can imagine. This will lead to identify different needs and different preferences in each sector. Please ensure that there is a healthy demand and the commercial viabilities for your product and services to when you sell it to Japan. Please also ensure that you're able to offer a superior or at least an equal level of quality and standard and services as Japanese products and services. Next one is the needs and preferences and also adaptations. It's often the case that the home products from foreign countries may not work unless they are adapted to the local needs and preferences. You might have experienced the same problems. For instance, advanced technology on rapidly freezing molecular structures of food, which is in high demand in Japan, particularly to the home delivery traditional dishes like sushis, noodle soups, as well as to minimize food loss or preserve Japanese seasonal fruits and vegetables. If you have such technology, expand your market research beyond the conventional business sectors. Identify business-specific needs and the preferences of each sector. And ensure you can offer expected quality and standard and services. The last one, market geography. As for your market research, you may think technology-oriented companies, they concentrate in Tokyo or Osaka, the big cities. As a matter of fact, small and medium-scale companies which require advanced technologies, they exist in provincial cities as Japanese central and the 47 local governments. They now pursue regional revitalization policy. This is a new policy. It's been going for more than a decade. And they offer, promote certain industrial sectors in certain local cities. I will show you a map of Japan here. So it's colored in pink, yellow, green, blue, and so on. These are regions. There are 47 local governments in it. And then Japan now has, as I mentioned, it's Japan regional revitalization plans. So each 47 prefecture, they offer certain specific sectors to promote, and then they want to promote in collaboration with partners, including the European companies. For instance, the map lists Hamamatsu City, which is in the middle of Honshu on the Pacific Ocean side, in Shizuoka Prefecture. This city, Hamamatsu, promote optical technology, which is of your great interest to some of you. To put this regional revitalization plan, Japan External Trade Organization is called JETRO. JETRO runs the regional tie-up programs. This program supported international cooperation between Japanese regions and the 13 regions of the EU. Actually, there are 5 in Germany, 2 in France, 1 in UK, 1 is in Finland. And I listed, just for your information, the tie-up program with France and Germany. The France, you can see that there's a cosmetic valley in the Saga prefectures, which is in the Kyushu region, which is a southern island. The second one is a pharmaceutical, Ile-de-France and the Toyama prefecture, which is Hokuriku regions on the Japan Sea side in the middle of Honshu. Toyama prefecture is famous for pharmaceuticals for historical reasons. For Germany, you could see the automotive and the industrial facilities, life science, medical devices, optical technology, organic electronics, and renewable entities. As you can see on the name of the prefectures, they are all in regional cities. So now we go to the next slide. So this Japan External Trade Organization, JETRO, they organize online matchmaking meetings to build Japanese and the foreign partnership on individual company basis. I listed the link. So this is the sort of matchmaking opportunities for you from the Japan side. Obviously, there are many opportunities that you could join on the EU side as well. So now this is a map which shows Japan's free trade agreement, economic partnership agreement, all related initiatives. You can see that all the green, highlighted green, they have a trade agreement with Japan. You can see that Japan has a free trade agreement with many countries in Asia and the Pacific regions, including ASEAN countries, Australia, and New Zealand. Japan takes a global lead in key industries which require advanced technologies such as consumer electronics, engineering, aviation, car manufacturing. Japan now invests quite heavily into the new focused areas, including medical equipment, pharmaceutical products, biotechnology, safety equipment, and dietary supplements. From this year, Japan and China also joined the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It's a free trade agreement among the Asian Pacific nations, which is a very new one, and even it's not listed on this the map. Additionally, when taking into consideration of Japan's stable political system, set rules of laws and regulations, high standards, and strong protection of intellectual property rights. Also, Japan has attractive policies to accommodate foreign direct investment. So EU companies, you might be able to vision Japan as an entry point to develop a strong foothold, your business starting point in the Asian and Pacific regions. Now I'd like to move to the entry options in order to search the most effective way to enter into Japanese market for you. So I listed these 3 options. They are just the categorical ways to enter Japan as a new business. The slide said on your left, exporting. Exporting is a simple export products to Japanese buyers without any involvement in marketing and sales activities in Japan. You simply sell to the Japanese buyers. Exporting requires much less financial and operational investment, so that it's a quite attractive low-cost options. On the other hand, on your left-hand side, business entities. Setting up a subsidiary in Japan requires higher investment, but it gives a higher prospect for return on investment. It will be a standard course of actions to start with exporting and expand it into partnership in the middle, and later into subsidiaries. This is a due course. However, for those companies like yours, which are in advanced technological sectors, you may consider starting for partnership in order to protect your technological secrets or patent. You may use an agent, in this case, to search your partners. Now I would like to take each options, exporting, partnership, and business entities, further deeper. So the first option is market entry option, exporting. This is the most common contractual partners for foreign exporters to set the initial foothold in Japan. And there are two ways. Agents, using agent, or using a distributors, and then you make an agent contract or distributor contract. These contracts has a quite different profiles. This is an agency contract. Agents generally operate much smaller scale than distributors. And they have a very specific industry or sector expertise, and they do not hold any inventory stock. Agent can be an option for more for B2B. Agent can be based in Japan, or they could be in the EU. And they are more effective in certain sectors, such as extremely specialized subsectors, including advanced technological sectors. Under agent contract, agent find end users for you. They market your product at your price. This is called a back-to-back price. And agent receive the commission from you. However, agents, they do not have any functional capacities. So they just only find end user, end clients for you. So EU exporters and the Japanese buyers, they have to make a separate contract. You can see it on the slide, sales contract, under which it should be agreed on the functional responsibilities, namely that who pays to function as importers, transporters, warehouses. The agent, they do not be a part of this sales contract. Large-scale Japanese buyers, however, they are specialized in imported products, and they may have their intermediary functions within the company. But the smaller buyers, they don't have it. So you have to find there's more intermediaries between EU exporters and the Japanese buyers. Generally speaking, the sales commissions range from 10 to 20% for spot. But in case of medical laboratories, scientific and analytical instruments, commission rate goes quite high. Could go beyond 20% because of the complexity of the product and the services. Commission certainly under the agent contract is a negotiating point. We move to a distributor contract. You can hire a Japanese distributor or distributors. This option is typically for B2C. They are often called importers instead of distributors. Japanese distributors deal with a wide range of products within their specialized industry and sector, and then they market your product through their established their own distribution channels to multiple clients. Japanese distributors or importers normally hold their own storage. They have a transportation capacity, and they perform import functions. Under distributor contract, distributors find end clients for you, and then they market your product. But they charge their commission included in the sales price. This is so-called a markup. Distributors make a sales contract with Japanese buyers. So foreign exporters do not pay commission fees to distributors, but you might lose certain control over distributors, their transactions, particularly on pricing and servicing. When hiring multiple distributors, this means that different distributors charge different prices, so that the markups are out of your control. It's difficult to control, at least. As I mentioned, Japanese consumers' loyalty to products largely depend on the servicing, such as the return and repair policies, so that this competitive edge could be out of your reach. It's difficult to control. Foreign exporters may hire only one single distributor and then give exclusive rights to sell the product in Japan. It sounds very attractive, and then also it sounds very simple. Certainly, it's a simple solution that you have only one distributor and then discuss all aspects of your business with only one distributor. But there are cons. For instance, if you find their performance unsatisfactory and decide to terminate a contract, this can bring complications as you extricate yourself from the business relationship. So, as you might know, that the legal settlement of business dispute are quite rare in Japan, and it's costly in both financial and operational sense. So due diligence on selecting a single distributor must be taken seriously. Generally speaking, the criteria for the selection of intermediaries, either agent or distributors, you have to check their sector knowledge, experience, evidence. You have to have evidence of a clear marketing strategy at the outset, both short and the medium and long term. Also, you should check their networks in Japan with prospective end user clients. And you should also check the how extensive their market coverage is. Language skills that you can count on. Also, you can check their market reputations. I should also recommend to have a representative office in Japan for distribution options to supervise marketing activities, like the case of agent contract. Next category of market entry is a partnership, and there are licensing and joint venture. Licensing is the most popular option in manufacturing sectors, and it is built on business relationships on patented technology. Licensing contract can grant a Japanese company called licensee the right to produce and sell a EU product in Japan in exchange for the licensing fees. It often includes a right to customize the product as well as to follow local requirements, so-called the product adaptations to the local need. Under licensing, EU company that grant a license, called a licensor, avoid expensive starting up costs in Japan, but typically loses some control over how your advanced technology is used by licensees, including quality control. Profits are limited to the fees that it collects from licensees. Legal licensing contract must be drawn up. While companies can benefit from this kind of low-stress expansion to a new market, with additional revenue from a growing consumer base in Japan, as well as in Asia and the Pacific regions, there's a little chance to learn about the Japanese market here. Use your experience and the findings to develop more permanent presence through incorporating Japan. Then what can we do beyond this licensing? I have another case. Next one is a joint venture. Under a joint venture, the EU company can create a new business together with a Japanese partner or partners. Both parties to invest and receive return on the investment from jointly created new businesses. Now here, I presented the case. It's a combination of the licensing and joint venture. This is just an example. I present a case. This case, EU company offer technology under licensing contract to a newly created joint venture company and receive licensing fees in addition to the return on investment. Joint venture is especially attractive when the EU company believes that working closely with the local Japanese companies, which can provide important knowledge about local market conditions and facilitate acceptance of the business involvement by government officials and consumers or B2B clients. This combination could work quite well for a company with advanced technological solutions. Last market entry option is to set up a business entity. And then there are branch option and subsidiary option. Here, I summarize the difference between branch office versus subsidiaries. Branch office and subsidiary of the foreign company in Japan need a registration. Both need registrations. And they have a freedom. Both have a freedom in activities. You can engage in the marketing and sales activities. Both options can allow you to make marketing and sales activities in Japan. There are two major differences. The first difference is the branch office need a permanent residence, but subsidiaries do not. However, as I indicated in green, I highlighted in green, I suggest that this, even for subsidiaries, you should install the resident representatives, although legally speaking, you do not need a residence representative for subsidiaries. This is because, practically speaking, Japanese business partners, particularly banks, banks would require local residents to be the company representative for the proof of initial capital in bank and day-to-day business transactions. So basically, both branch office and subsidiaries require the same requirements. The second difference is accounting and auditing. A branch office does not have its own legal corporate status, so It relies on the corporate status of the parent company in the EU. So therefore, the foreign company is ultimately responsible for all liabilities that this branch office may incur. Subsidiaries, on the other hand, are independent from the parent companies financially. As for subsidiary, well, in Japanese we call it the kogaisha. There are two kinds. One is a joint stock corporations. Another one is a limited liability companies. As I say, joint stock corporation is a traditional one with a social credibility, but with higher cost. Limited liability, possible to raise capital from public. Limited liability company is a new category since 2016. It has a high flexibilities in operations and popular for new establishments. The clear difference between the two is that you can raise capital from public or not. And both types, joint stock corporation, limited liability company, both can start with a capital investment 1 yen or more. But obviously, as you know, that the business invests more than 1 yen to because you need a working capital to continue your business. But this, legally speaking, you could invest as much as you can, starting from 1 yen. Some people perceive a joint stock corporation has advantages. Because some say that it attracts the equity investment, it can gain the social credibility, it has a preferential access to manpower and bank loans. But these are just the perceptions. Such advantage of joint stock corporations, it comes with higher cost on certifications, registrations, administrations with legal requirements to publish financial and operational results, and with more complicated tax and social insurance procedures. Similarly, that some people perceive the limited liability company has a lower social credibilities. They claim that it's because it's a newly created categories, and then CEO is now called a representative member, so it doesn't sound very impressive. These again, it's a perceptions. This limited liability company has limitations. It lacks the possibility for going public to obtain external capital, but it has many advantages. Advantages for setting up a limited liability company includes many practical benefits. Reasonable fees on certification, registration, administration, very simple legal procedure for setting up. There's no capital requirements, no obligation to publish financial and operational results, and a greater freedom to self-administer the company, liberal distribution of profit, and flexible management decision-making process. It has many advantages. These are the reasons that why that the well-known companies which came to the Japanese market, they chose limited liability companies. Companies includes which takes a limited liability company in Japan includes Amazon, Apple Japan, SoftBanks, Google, Universal Music, and on and on and on. Newly created tech companies, they all take limited liability company status. Next topic is standards and then protection. When selling manufacturing goods to Japan, it's important to meet Japanese industrial standard. So I'm showing on the slide that EU and Japan has own domestic industrial standards. Namely that Europe has a European norm standard, or it's called EN. Japan industrial standard, it's called JIS, JIS. These EU and Japan domestic standards adapt the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, and also International Organization for Standardization, ISO, to a great extent. But each maintains its standard in many parts. You can also see that only a handful number of countries has a domestic standards. You could see that the US, Australia, UK, Canada, and China, in addition to EU and Japan. You can see that there's no Asian countries, not many, except this is China. So you could imagine that this Japanese JIS influence on the standard used in Asia and the Pacific regions. Japan Industrial Standard, JIS, adapt the international standard, but it's basically a collection of national technical standards on types, scales, quality, performance, and safety. They are voluntary standards. Although it's voluntary, JIS is applied to domestic and imported products to Japan in order to conform with Japanese technical standard. These standards are revised every 5 years. One practical tip is that the standards are largely set for final products, so that some exporters intentionally remains as a suppliers of parts in some sectors like a medical device, rather than as a supplier final product, because they want to avoid the complicated requirements from this Japan industrial standard. JIS cover the following 20 technical areas, or so-called divisions, starting from the civil engineering, architectures, mechanical engineering, and on and information processing, miscellaneous packaging, welding, radioactivity, etc. Then what is the advantage of having a Japanese industry standard? The advantage to conform with Japan industry standard is to give you a competitive advantage. Your product is certified to have conformed with Japan's industrial requirements, and it assures the Japan customs when you export, and then also buyers, Japanese buyers, of the high quality standard, which can be a competitive advantage in Japanese market. It is important to note that for bidding in public biddings in the Japanese government procurement process, JIS is the determinant for EU companies to compete. It's also determinant for distributions, sales and distributions. I could give you one example. That is one Spanish company which sells dental products, which chose not to conform, not to apply for Japan industrial standard. The consequence was for the Spanish product, this particular Spanish product could not have a distribution channel to the retail shops. Their access to the consumer is limited through dentist and also online shopping. The major reason is that the distributors do not take this Spanish product because of non-compliance with GIS, so that they don't sell it at the retail shops. There are 3 GIS certificates that the Japan Quality Assurance Organization issues. You could see 3 signs. GIS for industrial mineral products, GIS for processing technology, and GIS for particular aspect. These are the 3 different marks. When marketing goods and services to Japan, it's important to protect your industrial property rights. EU IP registration, as you know, will not protect EU rights overseas, but many foreign countries, including Japan, offer their own IP protections to EU intellectual property rights. In Japan, patents and trademarks are registered on a first-to-file basis. It's your responsibility to register IP rights, but it's indispensable for you, particularly the small and the medium-sized enterprises, to ask help from Japanese partners and the Japanese legal advisors. I listed here that Japan's National Center for Industrial Property Information and Training. This office has an IPR application acquisition help desk. They offer free of charge consultation services on applications for IPR in Japan. I would suggest that you use it. It is a very handy help desk. On the help desk, experienced IPR expert of the accept the various questions as you may have concerning IPRs via email, post, telephone, or face-to-face interviews. Answer or advisory comments for the mailed inquiry will be given within the 3 working days after your inquiry is accepted. So, telephone consultations available from 9 to 7 p.m. and face-to-face consultation available from 9 to 5:30. Japanese government enforce IPRs on foreign goods at the border by Japan Customs, and also they enforce in market by Patent Office. So at 2 stages, they protect your intellectual property rights. In case of trade between the EU and Japan, the EU-Japan EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement, provides enhanced intellectual property rights protections, particularly for European companies, which export innovative, artistic, distinct, and high-quality products to Japan. The commitments are reinforced and include a provision on protection of trade secrets, trademarks, copyright protections, patent, minimum common rules for regulatory test data protections for pharmaceuticals, and civil enforcement provisions. They protect your rights in Japanese market. I highlight is the certain points that it's ensured under EU-Japan EPA. Trade secrets, confidential information for sales or licenses are protected for EU products. EU-Japan EPA also specify exceptions to trade secret, i.e. that what cannot be violation of trade secrets. Next is the so-called supplementary protection certificate. Protect the patent term extension for pharmaceutical and plant product patents for maximum 5 years, up to 5 years. Next one is a test data for pharmaceuticals, which have been used to obtain a marketing approval by Japanese authorities, cannot be replicated or referred to by other pharmaceutical applicants for minimum 6 years. So they have to wait at least 6 years to use. Test data used of the plant products, such as the chemical products, are protected for minimum 10 years. Minimum 10 years. These incentives for originators, you must have used so much money and effort on R&D and prevent the generic manufacturers from speeding up their market approvals. Next one is a trademarks. Trademarks are protected against not only for the manufacturing, but also for importation and then presentations. Next one is a registered industrial designs are protected to for minimum 20 years. Next is unregistered product appearance. There is a protection on the appearance as well. This is very interesting. It's protected for minimum 3 years. This means that Japan protects even unregistered the product appearance that you use, such as the configurations of EU goods or the shape of EU goods and the patterns, color, gloss, texture combined with the shape. They cannot be copied for commercial use by others. So these are the very beneficial points that you would enjoy it with Japan. Now I come to the last topic, which is Japan's business culture and practices. And I start with the business culture. So I show a map, the physical distance between Europe and, well, it's France, but it's Europe and Japan, so normally it's more close to 10,000 kilometers away. So the question is, what about the cultural differences between EU, Europe, and Japan? Knowing cultural difference would greatly help you build a stronger business relationship with the Japanese partners, colleagues, clients, and other business contacts in Japan. The first, I introduce the 5 characteristics of Japanese business culture. And I also present the problems. And then I intend to provide practical solutions to you. The first point is collectivism, consensus-based decision-making. Compared to Europe, Japan is a more collectivist society, where cohesiveness or one voice among the group of individuals is very valued. In business, decision-making is a consensus-based. By having each layer of hierarchy, starting from the bottom of the hierarchy to the top management, all has to agree on decisions. This caused a long, lengthy approval process on your proposal. You may find it very inefficient and frustrating. The fact is, there is no shortcut in the process. But how can you then benefit from this process? A way go forward is to convince the bottom of hierarchy to agree to your proposal first. Then it would go up to the top managers for final decisions. So I suggest you send your good staff in negotiations of similar age and similar positions to the working level negotiators from the Japan side. Make sure that your proposal is comprehensive and perfect at the time of submission. Ensure to minimize time-consuming back and forth discussions. Then it will be a matter of time to obtain the company's final decisions and come to the conclusion of the contract agreement. It's important that the starting point, at the bottom of the hierarchy. Second, loyalty in group, symbiosis. Japan is a group society, and the Japanese are loyal to the groups that they belong to, so that the Japanese in group act as one unit according to various situations. There's a tendency of symbiosis that some separate groups build a cooperative or alliance relationship against other groups, such as one sector versus other sectors, or manufacturer versus retailers, or one maker versus another maker, or even Japanese versus foreign companies, and so on and on and on. Loyalty is extended to alliance group. So you may find a Japanese in group act differently from situation to situation. Consequently, a group of companies take a common positions or opinions and ask your companies to stand as an alliance. Alternatively, a group of companies build a mutually beneficial relationship and they stand against you because you're outside of the alliance. What should you do in this case? It would be quite useful if you have a people on your team who can understand the local context, or the external consultants to brief you with the local business context of group alliance. It is very helpful. The third one is homogeneity, lack of information or excessive information. Japan is an island nation and has a geographical isolation from other countries. There is much less diversifications in culture and the people than Europe. And the family structure and educations are more standardized than Europe. These make Japanese very homogeneous in thinking, values, ideas, and behaviors. For these reasons, you may find that the Japanese assume people have the same level of knowledge and understanding of communication context, so that there's no need of details. So communication remains indecisive and it lacks information. On the contrary, some Japanese may assume that the foreigners have a very little understanding of communication context that the Japanese share. So they bombard you with extensive information that isn't totally relevant to context. The communication remains very unfocused and information is excessive. What should you do in this case? It may sound time-consuming, but it must be the fastest way to solve such problems if you build a better understanding of context with your Japanese business partners and share common information through honest discussions. This takes time, but you have to make a communications. Hierarchy in the formalities, lengthy process. In Japan, the business relationship and the business positions are founded on the various system of hierarchies. In a company, older employees are positions higher than the young ones. In the market, clients or customers are positions higher than sellers. In the supply chains, makers are positions higher than the suppliers. These are the so-called set rules and practices in relationship, which Japanese expect the foreign partners to follow. In Japan, business negotiation follow formality. There is no fast-track alternatives in Japanese hierarchy. You need to prepare comprehensive, detailed agenda and set specific outcomes, which are beneficial to both parties, and then go throughout each step of hierarchies. Formality and procedures are important elements in the process of hierarchical decision making. There's no exception for foreign companies in this regard. Long-term orientation, long-term relationship. Japan is a long-term oriented society. In business, companies focus on the business continuity and make a long-term investment in business. Japanese companies, once decide to keep a long-term business with you, then they make a long-term commitment to your company as a long-lasting business partner. For this reason, the Japanese companies expect mutual benefit rather than the one-sided transactions. A Japanese company possibly a small company, may prefer the vague statement to exchange with you, such as like a memorandum of understanding, rather than a contract with specification in order to be flexible on terms and conditions. If you do not feel comfortable with such a vague statement, you should ask a legal contract to specify terms and conditions. It is common, however, for the medium and the large-scale companies to sign the legal contract from the beginning. Now I have a very limited time, but just quickly I go through the Japanese business practices. The first point is the formal and rituals. Japanese business is very formal and ritualistic, particularly when meeting the traditional business partners for the first time. You may like to ask a third party to introduce you to the Japanese potential partners. However, more modern partners in technology sectors like the sectors where you are, and then also the modern Japanese partners who want to who are attracted to the EU products, and they speak English and the European languages, they might be quite open to the casual so-called cold calls. But in principle, Japanese business is formal and ritualistic. Next one is a two-tier business relationship. To establish a long-lasting business relationship, you need to set up a two-tier business relationship. First, you establish a friendship, and then move to the second stage of actual business negotiations. Occasions to meet your Japanese partners outside of business would be a good opportunity to get to know them. Next one is a name card. You have to prepare your name cards. Name cards, or meishi in Japanese, is a must to have. Name cards are exchanged on every occasion when one business person meets another. The purpose is to make a business positions and the status known to others. And Japanese like to set a formal relationship based on the business status. Next one is a business correspondence. There may be a situation where you write the business inquiries but no replies. This does not necessarily mean that Japanese partners lack interest, but they often, it happens because of the slow decision making, or Japanese companies are accustomed to the talk, face-to-face talk, or there's nobody who speaks foreign language, for instance. But I would suggest that you do not hesitate to call or write to them. The only thing is you have to be careful is that you have to prepare yourself and then tell them that this in advance, the agenda, what do you want to talk, and then what the result you expected. Also for meetings, you need to respect this office hours and days. Like now it's in the lunchtime in Europe. Now here in Tokyo, it's in the evening. And Japan has 16 public holidays, which often create holiday weeks. Last two is the dress code. Dress code is a communication in Japan, one of the most powerful forms of non-verbal communication. Japanese business people, as you see, that they tend to wear conventional dark suits. Although Japanese are familiar with foreigners expect a certain variety of dress code, but I would suggest that one should avoid extremes in dressing. Next one is yes and no. In Japanese, yes also means I see and I understand. It doesn't mean that they agree. So you have to read their talk in between. The way they sound, when they sound like a non-committal, such as "let me think," I let you know. That means that they have some hesitation. So yes doesn't mean yes. The silence in negotiations. Long period of silence are quite common in meeting with Japanese. This is because they take time to think. Europeans may find silence embarrassing, but you feel obliged to say something. But it's the best way to handle such a situation is that you just wait until they say something after the silence. 8, legal settlement. I mentioned that that the legal settlement is quite rare. So I suggest that due diligence in advance should be given to the certain terms and conditions, particularly the payment terms, in order to avoid the business troubles. Legal settlement of dispute are rare in Japan. So I come to the end of my presentation. I would like to take some questions. I have less than 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nakabayashi. I think we have at least 2 questions. So yeah, the first one is on the screen now. Do you have an idea of the cost of the certification in Japan, and how long does it take, the process?
I hate to say, but it really depends. Depends on what type of certification. There's also the process depends on the individual cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot give you the guarantee that how long they take. The cost means the time and then the money wise. I think this GS office has a help desk as well. You could ask, or you could ask your Japanese partner to inquire how long it takes, or how much money involved.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And
to your surprise, that these Japanese government offices, they are quite accessible. They have always the help desk, and you can ask by telephone or by letter.
Okay, so we will share with everyone tomorrow the contact details of this help desk, so the participant can directly contact them. And then we had a second question, sorry. So it's an example of someone, I guess, from a company. A B2B corporation buyer asked us to use their trusted importer distributor. The other corporation favored other distributor. Now we have multiple competing distributors. Is that typical? If we choose only one distributor, we should change the buyer's trusted importer. Maybe not beneficial for us, isn't it?
It sounds very complicated. I'm not really sure why there are multiple distributors in between you and then B2B partners. Are there any requirements to have a multiple distributors? I would really suggest that this, you sit down and then talk to your Japanese partners, B2B partners, why they need is a multiple distributors. Occasionally, they suggest a multiple distributors because of the geographical extent. Maybe certain distributors, they are in charge of the certain areas, not other areas. So I would just ask them honestly with your partner that is, why there are so many distributors. One thing is that you should be very careful, as I mentioned, the distributors, they have their own price settings, and then you should really influence on the pricing, because otherwise each distributor started charging a different prices on the same product.
Yeah, I understood from the chat that they were talking about another corporation. So probably there is 2 different companies, and then so one distributor for each of the companies.
Okay.
So the European company has to deal with different distributors for different customers, if I understand well. So they wanted to
That
know
means,
if it's
it really
typical.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to negotiate, and then who pays the importers, who pays importations. There are many procedures you have to go through. It is a negotiating point between you, suppliers, and B2B partners, buyers, that who pays those costs in between.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
the money-wise, that's the negotiating point. Another one is honestly is the reasons why they need multiple distributors.
Okay, thank you. I hope it's useful. We have a third question. When we receive an email stating starting with "Dear Pascal San," should we answer by the same type of introduction, first name or last name, followed by San?
Yeah, yes, of course. But this, I'm not really sure that this Japanese person is familiar with the French name. They might think it's Pascal is the family name.
Okay, so what does it mean? San, just to understand?
San is a Mr.
Okay.
Or Miss.
Okay,
But
so it works also for the lady. We can put San also.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. But I should be very careful, because among Japanese, normally they use your family name.
Okay.
Unless or until they get very, very familiar with you personally. Yeah. So I kind of wonder that if they think it's Pascal is a family family name.
Maybe. And we have another question. Can you comment on trust from Japanese partners with external companies? Can Japanese integrate external companies into their group of trust, I guess you were talking about before?
Yes, external companies like European companies. If they want to buy European goods and services, I'm sure they want to take in. They will distribute your products in their distribution channels because they are interested in your products.
And they can integrate the European company as part of the alliance and the trust group. You can enter in very trustful relation.
If they want to, they take you in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's, I think it's in that case you should really expect that they want to keep a long-term relationship, because they don't want to just only take you in now and then out later.
Okay.
No, probably they are looking for a long-term relationship.
Okay. So if they are looking for a long-term relationship, it's a really good sign of trust and.
Of course, of course.
Okay. So thank you everyone for your questions. If you have any additional one, you can send it later also by email. You will have the contact of all the speakers. We have just uploaded the presentation, so you can download it on the chat if you are interested. And we will send tomorrow an email to all the participants with the speakers' contact details, with the presentation as well. And feel free to contact us if you have any additional question. We will also share the recorded video, so you can have a look if you miss some presentation, and feel free to share it with your contact as well. Thank you everyone for your participation. I hope you got some valuable insight to enter the Japanese market, and I hope your entry on this market will be successful. So have a good lunch, everyone in Europe, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Alithea. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.